Hey everyone, and welcome to Carter Plays. This is a video that's a first of its kind on this channel. It is a Disney Dreamlight Valley decorating video, and I'm so excited to start this series. I'm very excited to continue it. There will be very many videos on decorating in Disney Dreamlight Valley. And the very first biome that we're going to do that was pulled and voted by you guys is the Forgotten Lands. Oh man, out of all the biomes, I'm pretty sure that the Forgotten Lands was the absolute last biome that I thought I was going to decorate. I had no idea it would win first place, especially since it was the last land that we opened. And I feel like the Forgotten Lands is super challenging to pin what it should look like or what to even like decorate it with. But I love it. You guys love to give me a challenge, and I love that. So that's what we're going to do, the Forgotten Lands. So first of all, let's just kind of break down this area. The very first thing I had to do was just clear everything out. I took out absolutely everything that could be removed, just so I could kind of see what I was working with, how big the land was. The really unfortunate thing about the Forgotten Lands, however, is that you cannot remove that tree house. It is permanent. That is the only thing you cannot remove. Of course, you can't remove the ponds, but I think that's with every biome and every land. So yeah, you can't remove the tree house. So that's something you just have to work around into your decorating. The next thing I started to do was just kind of decide, all right, well, what buildings will I place in this biome? So I started kind of like piecing together and putting all of the really dark looking houses in there. Like obviously Jack Skellington from Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, that had to go in the Forgotten Lands. I tried to put Ursula in one of the bonds, but that didn't work. I thought it would kind of give it like a creepy vibe to have the carousel there, but I ended up putting it there, didn't like it. I felt like that was going to work somewhere else better. And the only other building I could think of that could remotely work in this area was the Monsters Inc. apartment complex. And so I ended up putting the Monsters Inc. apartment complex there only because when you really look closely at the building, it has a lot of sharp edges and features. It looks very Century Gothic. And so I thought, oh, okay, maybe that would work in a land that's really dark and has deep, dark colors, where everything else is looking really sharp. And so I did place it there, and I ended up liking it. I really thought I was going to use it in the plaza next to like Chef Remy's and Scrooge McDuck's store, but I really, really, really liked it here in the Forgotten Lands. I thought it worked really well, and you can't remove the pads of land that have the little concrete. So I kind of was working with those areas as well that already had those pads of concrete there. And the Monsters Inc. apartment complex just really worked there. A couple other things too about just decorating in the Forgotten Lands biome. I had watched lots of inspiration of other people that have decorated the Forgotten Lands, and so many people had all of these really cool buildings that they had purchased from different events that Disney Dreamlight Valley had going on. Like I saw a couple of really cool builds where some people had used the Hollywood Tower of Terror ride from Walt Disney World, and they also had the literal Haunted Mansion, and they put that in the Forgotten Lands, and it looked so good. And unfortunately, out of all the furniture in Disney Dreamlight Valley, I have only purchased 33%. I only have a third of the total amount of furniture that's in this game's entirety. So I only have a third to work with, and going through all of the furniture items that I do have, all the decorating pieces that I do have, I kind of feel like I have way more pieces for other lands, like say Dazzle Beach, for example, rather than the Forgotten Lands. Like once I really sat down and looked at what I had, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I have nothing to work with. But I tried my hardest to make what I had work and fill in this space as much as possible. It's a pretty good sizable piece of land in the Forgotten Lands. And so what I focused on was leaning more towards into the foliage aspect. I feel like I had to fill in a lot of spaces with Forgotten Lands foliage, which was totally fine because I think it ended up looking really well. I wanted to use the colors that I felt like were already prominent in this biome. If you look around, you'll see A lot of the colors that you have in the background are a lot of like pinks and purples. There's a little bit of reddish tones, and so I tried to lean into those colors as much as possible with decorating. I used a lot of the Forgotten Lands foliage as decoration, but also kind of mixed in some other colors too. I feel like when I decorate biomes, I'm probably going to want the entrances and exits to kind of have a transition as well. So I ended up using a few orange ferns from the Sunlit Plateau right around the exit and entrance just to kind of like show that it was about to transition to a different land. And I did end up really liking that. This area right here that we're decorating now, I kind of ended up making it like a courtyard park area, and I really enjoyed that. Since you can't move the ponds, I kind of wanted to work with what we had and where they were at, and I really liked having this courtyard pond area and putting all of these stone benches on either side just as a place where all of the characters can come sit and relax and fish. It just ended up looking exactly how I envisioned it in my mind. And I love, absolutely love those lanterns. Those were some that I think that I got early on from when the game first started. They may have been in the plaza or the peaceful meadow somewhere in there, but I had a bunch of those left over and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I loved how they added and they looked. Just the vibe of going down these Forgotten Land pathways that are very they're not manicured. It looked really good to me. I loved it. I loved how that turned out. But yeah, right now I'm just kind of like playing around with some of these detail decorations and just trying to figure out what I can put where. A couple other things that I started pulling out, I just ended up going through all of my inventory and was like, okay, what things can I potentially see using in this land? And I just started putting it all out because I knew I was going to use some of those things. Like, I love that fountain with the fire and the flame. I think that's so cool. And it just felt very Forgotten Landsy to me. But yeah, so right in this courtyard area, in this park area, I ended up putting Goofy Stall there. I felt like Goofy Stall was really bright and wanted to put it in a place where it made sense with the land and what I was using it for. And I already knew that I was making this a communal spot where characters would go sit and chill. And so if they want to hop over to Goofy Stall, get a few snacks, some fruit, vegetables, whatever they want to do, they can. But to kind of lessen the color from Goofy Stall and make it feel more Forgotten Landsy, I did put a lot of like dead brush and viney thorns in the background, just right behind Goofy Stall, so it didn't look too colorful. And then it ended up adding a ton of foliage. Let me tell you, I think I love the Forgotten Lands twisty viney trees. They're so perfect, especially because when you look at the trees, they cast such a wonderful shadow on the Forgotten Lands pathway. I love how that looks. I love how it's so mysterious and spooky, and it's just perfect for the Forgotten Lands. I also ended up looking at different pathways. I just really feel like I loved and enjoyed the Forgotten Lands pathway for the Forgotten Lands. I like that the purple grass comes through in some spots and it's not a super manicured look, because I feel like that's what the Forgotten Lands should be like. Oh, and let me tell you about this cat statue that I just put down. So I kind of made up this story in my mind. I was like, oh yes, this cat was a super famous cat in the Forgotten Lands, and it still yields some kind of magic. So I ended up displaying it as like a statue that you can go see in the park. And I really thought that was a really good thing. I think it brings a level. Oh yeah, and I put it on that really on that gold table, and it ended up putting, I think, another object next to it, like the mortar thing, in case someone wants to come and put like some kind of offering or something to the cat statue. But I really liked how that ended up turning out. It looks like that's a statue in a park. So that was really fun and really cool. I think I tried to experiment putting other different statue elements throughout the park, but it made it feel a little busy to me. So I ended up completely scratching that idea and just leaving the cat. I was like, no, the cat's enough. I like the cat. Also, too, if you notice in the pond, I did add some really green reeds. I didn't particularly like the green reeds. I thought they added too much greenery to something where I was trying to add a lot of like dead foliage to. So I ended up taking those out eventually, and I ended up putting these glowing lily pads, which have that color pink that I want to bring out throughout the build, and I ended up loving that way more. Man, I really think it's starting to come together now. Looking at the build back, you can really see some good development here. I tried to start placing some more just foliage in this area to fill in any kind of dead spaces that I felt like needed to be filled up, so it felt a little bit more full. I ended up not really liking the bushes in this one spot or that tree. I just felt like it just looked too perfect, and I really wanted to have some more places where I could garden. So I ended up changing my mind, and I put a small garden in this communal area. I couldn't figure out exactly what I wanted to place there because I knew that I wanted to have a pumpkin patch here as well. So I think I ended up making like a small 12 space garden of eggplants because eggplants are purple, and I thought that that would just fit the vibe of the Forgotten Lands. So I did put a communal garden there. And then another thing too, I found these rusty trash cans from Wally's Furniture that I thought looked so great in the communal park space. Thought they looked really good there. So moving on to the other section of the Forgotten Lands, we've come to a pretty good space where I think things are well decorated on the other side. I continued using these pathways on the other side of the Monsters Inc. apartment complex, trying to figure out to where the pathways were going to go was so hard because I was like, I have to work around this treehouse, and I really honestly did not know what to do with this treehouse. I was like, it's just there, and I just don't know what to do with it. But later on, I think we come to a pretty good idea. I had found this really cool pillar that I had in my furniture that I didn't know that I had. And the furniture was perfect to go right there because it was a pillar literally with night thorns on it. And since the treehouse is engulfed in night thorns, I was like, oh, that's perfect. Not only does it match the theme of the Forgotten Lands, but it also has a really nice purple element to it. I also added a lot of bushes around the fencing of the Monsters Inc. University complex. Loved those bushes. Oh yeah, this is where I actually add the eggplant garden. But anyways, back to these pillars. So the pillars that I found, I decided, I was like, okay, what if we use these Forgotten Lands pillars and we put them all four around the treehouse, and then we encase the treehouse with some more brush and dead trees to make it look like that whole entire square space is overgrown with the Forgotten. And I thought that was a good idea because that just kind of is going to be a place where you can go to remember what the Forgotten was and kind of how far we've come as a valley. And so I left all of that space where the treehouse is just to be a place to serve as a reminder of the Forgotten and everything. I ended up like throwing around, I would pick up flowers occasionally and then just throw them randomly on the ground and be like, yep, that's where they're going. Because I feel like I get super picky with flower placement and then I overthink it. So just randomly throwing them on the ground is so much better. But, I ended up feeding the ravens. I don't know why I did that. Maybe I was trying to get them to be one of my critters. So anyways, moving back on to the decorating. I definitely love how the space around the treehouse turned out, it just took some time to like really think through how I was going to do it and how I was going to get there. Using the pillars, yes, I loved doing that. But I think once you added the foliage and everything, that really is what brought together that space really well. Another place that I really didn't know what to do with was this crystal area. Unfortunately, in the Forgotten Lands, that is another space that you cannot edit or move anything, so you have to work around with what's there. To me, I viewed it as a place where I could put something that could serve as like, maybe this is where the first dark magic was ever created in the valley, or maybe this is where Dreamlight was forged many years ago, or something like that. So I ended up turning that space into like an ancient ruin garden area where my pumpkin patch is at, which really made sense because that's what right next to it is where I put Jack in his house. And so I in my head, I feel like, oh, okay, this is where Jack comes and he, gets to be around the pumpkins and think about his love of Halloween, but he also has a space where he can meet with the townsfolks and decide what they should do as far as what holidays they should be celebrating in the valley. So I ended up later on putting some benches in that area, but we'll get to that. Another thing I was actually trying to figure out in this space too is where to put the well. I kind of wanted to put the well in a central location, but I ended up putting it at the end because I loved how that looked on that random patch of concrete area. But I wanted to put a lot of foliage around it, and I ended up loving all the foliage we put around it. It just came together so well, and adding that little tiny hint of orange in different spaces really brought together a whole nother slew of color palette that I love for the Forgotten Lands. I love the deep purple and I love the pink purple, but adding the orange was like a whole nother level that I didn't know I would need. So it ended up working out really nicely. And then right over here where I decided I was going to make my pumpkin patch, I actually ended up making probably like about 100, about a little over 100, like 126 different pumpkins. So that's actually going to be really great for, coins and making money. So I'm actually glad that I added the pumpkin patch. It kind of was a process because it was trying to figure out how many pumpkins do I want to put down, and do I want to just put this random rectangle? Do I want to make a shape out of it? I think I ended up making 2 different square patches and forming them together. But I do really like how they turned out. I ended up adding some more trees in this area because I knew I was going to make that a closed off gated park. So I was definitely experimenting a lot at that time. But I do like how it turned out though. Adding the Sunlit Plateau orange ferns and then having orange pumpkins in the background really brought in the orange colors very cohesively, I felt like. So I'm excited to show you guys what the pumpkins all looked like in the back once we finished them. Oh, so satisfying to see all the plants be watered so quickly. Okay, moving on. This is the part where I have already added the pillars. So like I had mentioned earlier, those pillars that have the night thorns around them were so perfect for the treehouse. And I ended up adding our orb, the Forgotten Lands orb, in that area too. I did have this idea and this thought that maybe I would take every orb from every land and I would make them in a circle in the Forgotten Lands. But then I ended up not doing that, mostly because I could not, once I saw the Sunlit Plateau, like their orb has a big giant tree that looks like it belongs in the Plateau. And then I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I'm just really going to mess up my color palette I have going on if I bring every orb over here. So I decided, never mind, I'm going to keep the orbs for their biome in their biome, and work with it like that. But I ended up finishing off this really long gate that I had to hunt so much iron ore for. Oh my goodness. If there is any foraging item or mining item that you need, I feel like iron ore is definitely the one you need for almost everything. Anything you have to like build, any type of lantern, gate, functional item, any furniture piece has iron in it. So you just always need some kind of iron. I also found those flower arrangements and I ended up putting it outside the entrance of this dark park area. But yeah, oh my gosh, look at this. The foliage is really bringing it together. It's coming together nicely. Oh, also the car. I could not figure out where to put the car. I keep changing my mind about the car. But we'll start working on Jack's area here in just a bit. I think I finished off a lot of this with just hunting for iron ore and wrapping up the iron fence. That was probably my biggest thing that I needed to finish, but it came together. Once I did a bunch of hunting and got it done, I was like, yes, that is the complete look. Oh, and also too, you can see the orange pumpkins in the background. I thought they looked so good for the Forgotten Lands. They look good. But yeah, I changed my mind too. I ended up having an entrance and an exit to this specific place, and I thought that looked a lot better than just having one entrance. I don't know if you guys can see the pink flower arrangements that I put in those entrances and exits, but the vases of that flower arrangement have night thorns on them. So I was like, oh, again, this is so perfect. And we'll slow it down here in just a second and we will go detail by detail for you guys. But yeah, the Forgotten Lands, although it was really tricky, I think the hardest part was just starting, was just like putting something down and just deciding, okay, this is what we're going to do. My favorite part about working on the Forgotten Lands was actually Jack's area. And I did not think that that was going to be the case. But once I started placing down the pathway and figuring out Jack's area, what I had the most fun with was the foliage. I think placing foliage is probably going to be my new favorite thing when it comes to decorating, because it's so fun to like put in the pieces that bring it all together. And I feel like it's the trees and the grass and all of those things that really make it or break it. So for Jack's area, I ended up putting a lot of trees. I even put some dead pine trees because I was like, oh, that's so or fir trees, because he likes Christmas and that makes sense. So I ended up putting a lot of different elements there, and I was really excited that I had his house. Oh, and I added these pink trees. Let me tell you, the pink trees made it for me. I was like, yes, that it is coming together. Once I saw the pink trees, I was like, it's happening. It's happening. But yes, Jack's area was my most favorite to decorate. I tried to experiment with, Zero's house and the Christmas tree, but yeah, I'm putting some ferns down and it really all looks like it's pieced together. So I even actually put a mailbox for his house because I was like, okay, he has to have a mailbox. I feel like a red mailbox, because he loves red and green. And these street lanterns, it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to place them, because I think at first I had my street lanterns way too close together, and it ended up being they just were stacked way too on top of each other. But once I spaced them out and I really looked at the land, I was like, yes, this is it. This is what we've been needing. And I put the last lantern down. I was like, this is it. This is my Forgotten Lands. So we're almost here towards the end. I'm about to do the walkthrough of the entire Forgotten Lands and just show you guys the finished product. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to my first Disney Dreamlight build. Thank you for showing interest and voting on which one we should do first. I cannot remember off the top of my head at this moment what's the next land, but I will make sure to add it either at the end of this video or in the comments. And let me know what you thought of the build, if you think it looks good. Yeah, let me know below. I would love to know your thoughts and would love to also see your forgotten lands if you've decorated them. Hit me up on Instagram, DM me, show me your pictures, invite me to your valley. I'd love to check them out and see. But yeah, that will wrap up our Forgotten Lands decoration video. I will catch you for another video or stream sometime soon. Thank you so much for watching.